All right. Hey again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show that dives deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we are continuing looking at the subclasses for the Star Wars 5th edition monk. Have to adjust a little bit. As a quick reminder, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super important to letting me know you like this stuff, and so that other people see my stuff. That being said, we talked before, the Star Wars version of the monk is going to be a little bit more powerful than the D&D version of the monk. Their weapon damage die is a little bit bigger. Some of their abilities pack a little bit more of a punch. And their monastic vows give them a little bit more that they can do. So, that being said, the last subclass we looked at just really didn't make a whole lot of sense and just really wasn't kind of balanced the way that it needed to be to make it an interesting thing. The subclass we're going to look at today has the exact opposite problem, and I find it kind of interesting. But let's dive into this. So the monk that we are covering, the subclass, is the Echani Order. Monks of the Echani Order train relentlessly, both with and without their weapons, to the point where the weapon becomes an extension of the body. Founded on mastery of sword fighting, the tradition has expanded to include many different weapons. So, that's the description of the Echani Order. I'm going to let you guys know, I'm going to pull off the shroud that is hiding this in secrecy. The Echani Order is the way the Kensei. Like, almost word for word. They change a couple words in here so that it works with Star Wars 5th edition. But mechanically, and almost everything else, this is the way the Kensei monk. I've covered the way of the Kensei monk in another video. I like the way of the Kensei monk because literally nothing about this is different. I don't really need to go over this again. If you want to hear about the cool things you can do as a way of the Kensei monk, watch the way of the Kensei monk video. It's in my D&D deep dives. It's a cool monk. And I really enjoy. The thing that's going to make this different is effectively how this interacts with effectively just the monastic vows, because the rest of the changes are not the changes that are built into the Star Wars monk are not really going to change that much of the Echani Order. And as you mentioned, the monastic vows, there's probably not going to be a ton that changes. Like things like Vow of the Versatile, which allows you to make monk weapon attacks in place of unarmed strikes. That might be a little bit useful, but technically with the Kensei, they already have stuff that makes you be able to use your Kensei weapon, or in this case, Echani weapon, significantly more often. With Agile Parry, you can increase your armor class. Echani Shot, you do extra damage. Enchanted Echani weapons is magic Kensei weapons. Just means they count as magical, or in this case, enhanced. And then Death Strike is the same thing. Like it's Death Strike. So it basically allows you to do kind of a lesser version of a smite. Sharp of the blade, you can basically give your Echani weapon up to a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls. Basically turning into a +3 magic weapon. Again, really useful. That combined with Vow of the Versatile could be really useful, because that means now your flurry of blows can actually use your Echani weapon, so that That would be very, very useful. And then 17th level unerring accuracy is effectively if you miss, you can roll it once per turn. So yeah, everything about the Echani Order is great because it's a subclass that already exists. Like word for word, this is taken from the Way of the Kensei, which is fine. The big issue I have with it is the same issue I had with Crimson Order, is it doesn't. I mean, it talks about you're good with swords, but if you compare it to what they have for Way of the Kensei, again, this has 2 sentences of description. Way of the Kensei, 2 paragraphs. Monks of the Way of the Kensei train relentlessly with their weapons to the point where the weapon becomes an extension of their body. That sounds really familiar. Founded on the mastery of sword fighting, the tradition is extended to include many different weapons. Wow, that is the exact same thing. They literally just took the first 2 sentences of Way of the Kensei, but they skipped out on the second paragraph. A Kensei sees a weapon in much the same way a calligrapher or painter regards a pen or brush. Whatever the weapon, the Kensei views it as a tool used to express the beauty and precision of the martial arts. That such mastery makes a Kensei a peerless warrior is but a side effect of intense devotion, practice, and study. That is the most important part of the Way of the Kensei. It gives you a motivation for why you are so good with this. This is just mechanics. You're real good with swords. That second paragraph for Way of the Kensei goes, you're really good with swords because you see it as an artistic tool. The same way that a painter would use it to create, beautiful landscapes and things like that. You use a sword to do this. Is the same thing. That gives you a motivation for why your character would join the Echani Order. Those are so important. And it makes sense with the rest of everything in here. Here it's just like, oh yeah, you're real good with a sword. When you look at it as, oh, it's because you see its beauty. Sharpen the Blade has an entirely different viewpoint when you go, yes, this blade is my paintbrush and the battlefield is my canvas. So I'm going to augment my paintbrush. My skill with a paintbrush is so good that I can take any random paintbrush and just with my skill and focus, I can use it in ways that no one else could. That's really interesting. Whereas Sharp the Blade is, hey, here's a way to give you magic weapons or enhanced weapons in this. Again, the subclass itself is solid. It's a really great subclass. The issue is there's no why as to why the subclass works the way it is. And I'm starting to think that that's probably going to be the biggest problem. And that is a huge problem for Star Wars, because Star Wars is such a lore-heavy franchise. Like if you go to, they have a subreddit. If you go to the subreddit there, look at the conversations that people are having. Like one of the conversations I chimed in on, someone's going, hey, is there like a lead for the Force? Like if I wanted to create like a box or something that you couldn't see through with the Force, how would I do that without using a magic lizard? If you don't know what magic lizard is, it's a Star Wars. There's these lizards, I can't pronounce their name, but they don't exist in the Force, and they have this kind of anti-Force field. So within a certain distance of one of these lizards, the Force just doesn't work. And so they had all these people going, well, what about this and what about this? I brought out, the Yuzhen Vong are naturally almost immune to the Force, and all their technology is biological. So the same thing that makes them almost immune to the Force also makes their ships almost immune to the Force, also makes their weapons almost immune to the Force, because everything is grown biologically. There's no actual technology in anything that they do. And I go, well, if you were to harvest Yuzhen Vong a ship wall or something like that, you could theoretically in your version of the Star Wars universe, I could see that being a justifiable way to say, no, this box or this room or whatever is immune to the Force. I could totally see that. Because lore is such a big deal in the Star Wars universe, and there's so much of it. Even after Disney threw out the expanded universe, which is now the Legends, you totally go to town with Legends and something like this. Don't let Disney tell you what you can and can't use. I mean, there's like 30 or 40 years worth of novels and comic books and video games that were all Legends, expanded universe canon, which is now Legends canon. So yeah, just leaving out the lore and the kind of why behind the what for all these, I think is doing a really big disservice. So yeah, that's the Echani Order. Because, again, I'm not really talking about a whole lot for this, I'm going to do one more subclass in this video, just because, again, this is a subclass I've already done. So, moving on. The next subclass is the Matukai Order. Again, I'm going to read the description of these, because, first of all, this is free, so I don't have to worry about people using this to get it for free. No, you can just go download it. There's a link in the description down below to get it. And again, I think it should kind of explain how everything works. So, let's try this again. Monks of the Matukai Order center their philosophy around a balance and harmony between the spiritual force and the physical body, using exercises as a form of meditation. They channel the force through their bodies, turning themselves into exceptional warriors. Okay, so they're Jedi. Kinda. Because that really is the description of a Jedi. Especially if you start, again, if you read the expanded universe or now the Legends, like I got really hooked on the Young Jedi Knights series, which is still a good series to read now. Like it's brilliant. It's young adult fiction, so it's not going to be super, it's not Game of Thrones or anything like that. But it's centered around Jacen and Jaina Solo, who are Han and Leia's twin children. They actually have 3 kids. They have Jacen and Jaina, and then the youngest is named Anakin. Yeah, a lot better than Ben. And with a lot more support for naming him Anakin than Ben. So anyway, Jacen and Jaina go to Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy that he created on Yavin 4, where the old Rebel Alliance base was from Star Wars A New Hope. That base is the same place. He just repurposed it as a Jedi Temple. And it was a cool series. They meet some friends. They meet Lobaka, who is Chewbacca's nephew, I think. And then this new character, who's not related to anyone else, named Tenel Kad Jo, who is the princess of the Hapes cluster. And she's being sent to get force training and become a Jedi before she becomes, the queen. When you read this, everybody has, different things that they approach. Like, Jaina is a tech wizard. She gets kind of her father's, technical ability, whereas Jacen is very much kind of empathetic, and he's very good with animals and things like that. Lobaka, his kind of main defining trait is he has a little droid that translates the Wookiee, the Wookiee language that he speaks, so that everyone else can understand them, to kind of justify that not all of them would speak Wookiee. And then Tenel Ka is super into physicality, to the point where, like, when they created their lightsabers, because that was a big, I think it was book 4, they all got to make their lightsabers. It was a really big deal, and it was a super cool book. They start training with these spheres, very similar to how Luke did, where they were shooting them and things like that. But instead of having a blast shield down so they couldn't see anything, they had this red kind of welding mask, and the things that were shooting at them were red. And so as soon as you put the mask down, those were invisible. They could still see all their friends, so they wouldn't have to worry about chopping them into tiny little pieces. And so when they're doing that, everyone is starting to use the force. They're starting to be able to deflect things. They're feeling really good. And then out of nowhere, Tenno Ka like shoots her blade up and bisects one of the remotes. And Luke goes, okay, very, very good. So did you guys feel the force in doing this? And then Tenno Ka goes, yeah, I felt the force as well, but I also used my other senses. I could hear whenever it moved, and I used that to pinpoint exactly where it was so I could strike it. And he goes, that's good. You should rely on the force, but you should also rely on your own senses. So Tenno Ka, I could totally see being a Matukai Order monk. Like that idea of blending the force with physical training exists already. I mean, if you look at Sindralig, he 100%. If you don't know who that was, he was the weapon master of the Jedi Temple right at the end of the Old Republic. He got killed. I think Anakin killed him when he was killing all the younglings and everything. But anyway, so like Sindralig would fit into the Matukai Order. So yeah, I mean, and this is again something is like, okay, I guess they're trying to go, okay, this is going to be a kind of a very martial Jedi kind of version of this. So let's see what they do. Yeah. The first ability is Force Enhanced Strikes. You learn to channel the force into your unarmed strikes and monk weapon, further enhancing your melee strikes. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike or melee weapon attack with a monk weapon, you can spend 1 focus point to force the creature to make a strength save against your focus save DC. On a failed save, it takes 2d6 damage and is pushed 15 feet away from you. On a successful save, the creature only takes half as much damage as it isn't pushed. There's 2 things I like about this. First things first, because it is based on a save, this doesn't turn into a Paladin Smite thing, where Paladin Smites, when you hit with a weapon, it says when you hit, you can add extra damage. Because of that, that means if you crit, because you add additional dice, that means Paladin Smites are doubled. This, because it's based on a save, means even if you crit, the save is a separate thing, and you can't crit on a saving throw. So that means this is always going to be 2d6 force damage, which at 3rd level, that's actually quite a bit of damage, and it pushes you up to 15 feet away from you. That's another thing that's really nice, is up to. It means that if you want to push them 15 feet, you can, but if it's more beneficial to only move them 5 feet or maybe 10 feet, you can do that as well. I mention all the time, being able to control where your enemies stand is really, really useful. You can put them into what I call fireball formation or lightning bolt formation. You can move them wherever you want. You can push them off of cliffs. You can push them into holes. You can push them into traps. You can also do things like push them out a door and then put someone with a high armor class in the doorway, and then they can only fight you one-on-one while everyone else takes pot shots from the other side. Like, there's so many benefits to being able to move someone. It's a little bit disheartening that it's a strength save, because a lot of creatures have high strength scores, which makes having them fail that pretty difficult. But the nice thing on this, on a successful save, the creature only takes half as much damage it isn't pushed. So you lose the push, but you still get some damage. So you're never wasting a focus point. You just won't do as much damage, which is nice. I like that. I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of control-based subclasses. The only thing I'm not particularly fond about this is at 3rd level, you have 3 focus points. So per short rest, you can do that up to 3 times, and that's if you aren't doing anything else. So it is an extremely limited ability. I kind of would like to see something that I'm I'm not saying that this isn't a good ability. It's a great ability. I would like to see something that they can use when they're not, when they don't have any focus points to use. Like, and if we look at the Echani that we just did, their agile parry doesn't take any focus points. So it's something that they can do even when they have no focus points. For a monk subclass, you really should have something in the third level ability that they can use when they're not using, when they don't have any focus points. That doesn't mean that it needs to be something, it doesn't need to be a combat ability, but they do need something to do. I don't think every single monk has something you can do. Like Hand of Healing from the Way of Mercy technically requires key points for that. So I guess it's not a hard and fast thing that it has to be, but I don't know. It would be nice to have something in there that you can do when you don't have focus points, but not a horrible thing. Like, again, I think this is a great third level ability. And again, it's going to mean that right from third level, you're going to play this class differently. You can move people with your force and hand strikes. So you're going to be much more focused on where are the enemies and where do I want to move them. So, yeah. Moving on. Sixth level, you get Instinctive Leap. When a hostile creature moves within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to disengage and leap up to half your speed. If you end this move in the air, you immediately fall to the ground. This is another thing that I could see people arguing is not that useful. And I would argue the exact opposite way. This is a massively useful thing. First things first, again, action economy in 5th edition, whether you're doing actual 5th edition D&D or this is just based on the SRD, action economy is super important. Whichever side has more actions that they can actively use has a benefit, has an advantage. And reactions are probably the least used action type in 5th edition because most people, the only thing they use their reaction for is to make opportunity attacks, which just don't happen that much. So this gives you a use for your reaction, and it's actually a pretty massive use. This is half your speed. Again, monks are hypermobile. They get to move a lot. So half your speed at 6th level really isn't that a big, it's only 20 feet, but that's almost a full movement for anyone else. That's 2/3 of a movement for anyone else. When you get up to max level, where you have it completely out, your movement speed, if I remember correctly, is 50 or 60. God, now I can't remember how unarmored movement works. God, I'm a super awesome monk dude. Totally. Unarmored movement plus 30 feet. So yeah, it turns into 60. I don't know why I thought it was 50. So that means your leap, you can move as a reaction. You can move 30 feet without provoking opportunity attacks. You get to move yourself exactly where you want to, and this happens when a hostile creature moves to within 5 feet of you. Now, the one problem I have with that wording is it just says when a hostile creature moves to within 5 feet of you. That is up to debate. Well, what happens if the creature is already within 5 feet of you? What if they shift 5 feet and they're still 5 feet away from you? What does that mean? I think this could be clearer if it said when a hostile creature moves to a space within 5 feet of you. That takes away a little of the ambiguity. If it's meant to be anytime somebody moves while they're within 5 feet, the way that this kind of reads would make me feel like they have to be further than 5 feet away, and when they first move within 5 feet of you, then you can use this reaction. The nice thing about that is, depending on the creatures that you're fighting, it's pretty easy to put yourself in a situation where you can use it as a reaction every single turn. And it also means before they get a chance, because when they move 5 feet from you, your reaction triggers then, not when they make an attack or something like that. So as long as you make sure you end your turn at least 5 feet away from any hostile enemies, as soon as one of them gets close, you get to move to wherever you want to again. Now, you only get 1 reaction per turn, unless you use their kind of enhanced dodge, their enhanced patient defense. There's just so many cool things you could do with this ability. Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. I like the idea of, because it feeds into the kind of hypermobility of the monk, even more so. Not only are you hypermobile, you're hypermobile on other people's turns. Like, that's super cool. This monk is never going to be in a place that they don't want to be. And because it's a leap, you can go, I would argue, you can go over enemies. You can go, over gaps and things like that. Like, you can leap straight up into the air and go to the second level if your DM does multi-level combat and stuff like that. Like, there's so many cool things you can do with that. So yeah, I like it. I think it's cool. Moving on. At 11th level, you get absorb damage. You can use a bonus action to channel a force through your body. Until the start of your next turn, you have resistance to kinetic and energy damage. You can use this feature 4 times. You gain additional use at 13th and 17th level. You gain all expended use when you finish a long rest. This is something that, again, I'm assuming that I'm just reading an earlier version of this. This is something that could be really easy replaced with. You can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, because that's literally what it is right there. So just reword that. I haven't seen them use proficiency bonus in this at all. Probably because I'm assuming this was written before Tasha's was a thing, which is where they started using proficiency bonus all at the time. But I would totally just say you can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. It's just easier. As far as the ability itself, you can use your bonus action to channel the force throughout your body until the start of your next turn. You have resistance to kinetic and energy damage. This runs into the issue of you have to kind of be clairvoyant for this to be useful. What I mean by that is, because it only lasts until the start of your next turn, and it has to be done on your turn. This is not a reaction-based ability. That means you have to basically expect that you're going to be hit. And any enemy that has a brain size larger than a walnut, after you use this ability once, will realize when they go, whoo, our attacks don't do as much damage. Let's go attack somebody else. Additionally, again, monks are very bonus action focused. Is getting resistance to most damage. It looks like basically everything but force damage. Because kinetic is going to be all your weapon-based damage, and energy damage is going to be basically blasters, lightsabers, anything like that. So basically everything but magic damage, which would be force damage. Is getting resistance to everything but force to the damage worth an unarmed strike or 2 unarmed strikes? Because you could flurry of blows, or as you get even higher, 3 unarmed strikes. The opportunity cost of this becomes less and less useful, because again, you have to hope that you're going to get hit. And I know for me personally, in general, I don't want to be hit as a monk. And this also, because it takes your bonus action, you can't combine this with something like patient defense, which would be much more beneficial, because instead of just taking half damage, you give them disadvantage on their attack rolls, meaning they will probably miss you completely instead of just taking half damage. And it also can do things like cancel out sneak attacks and other things like that. Like there's a lot more benefit to having disadvantage than. So yeah, the absorb damage, I get why they did it. I think it's just too limited for it to actually be useful, especially because it's an 11th level ability. At that point, you have so many better uses of your bonus action. Like, again, the patient defense gives you multiple reactions if you use that. And if you combine that with Instinctive Leap, that means you're just not getting hit. Whereas this is like, well, if you do get hit, you'll take half damage. Combine patient defense with Instinctive Leap, and yeah, you're just never getting hit. And they're wasting their attack trying to chase you around the field. So, yeah, absorb damage. Either it needs to last longer for it to be useful, or it just needs to be something else. Like, I think if this was to last... I don't know. Because in general, in 5th edition, you don't generally make durations that last for a number of turns. You make them last for a time period. It's one of the reasons why you see 30 seconds and a minute so often, because 30 seconds is 5 rounds. And a minute is 10 rounds. And so they translate between turn-based combat and real-world actions perfectly. Whereas 12 seconds feels really weird to say, whereas that's 2 rounds, but 12 seconds feels really, really weird to say. This ability lasts for 12 seconds. Why not 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 20 seconds? Well, because 10, 15, and 20 don't actually work with combat. It would mean it would end in the middle of a turn as opposed to ending at the end of it at a turn. So I think this would be too powerful to last for 30 seconds, which is the smallest increment that kind of makes sense. And it'd definitely be too powerful for a minute. But if you were to offset that by requiring it to use some focus, you might be able to make this to something where, yeah, that it does kind of make sense, but I think it needs to require focus. I think it needs to last longer. Yeah, that would be something that would need to be a playtest, though. But anyway, moving on. Finally, at 17th level, you get Control the Field. Whenever you use your Instinctive Leap feature, you can leap your entire movement speed instead of only half. Super cool. Additionally, when you land, you can make an unarmed strike with advantage against a creature within 5 feet of you as part of the same reaction. On a hit, this attack deals an additional 2d6 force damage. So Control the Field feels like a 17th level ability. First things first, something I just realized, other than force-enhanced strikes, nothing in the Matukai Order actually uses focus points. Everything is just abilities that you can use, which I'm not really against. Again, the base version of the monk has a lot of things to use your focus points for. Adding in things that use focus points as part of the subclass is perfectly fine. There's tons of subclasses that do that. But you have to understand, anytime you assign a focus point value to something, you now have created an opportunity cost. Is this worth 2 unarmed strikes? Is this worth 1 stunning strike? Is this worth a patient defense? And if any of those questions you know, they're never going to use that ability. So I'm actually fine with this not using focus points. But when you look at this, like, you can now leap your full movement. At 17th level, that is 60 feet. You can move, you can jump up a 6-story building. That's super cool. That feels like Star Wars. In the final fight between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Darth Maul in Episode 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi gets kicked to the face and launched off a platform and falls. We don't see how far he falls, but it's far. Like, you feel him hit the ground. And the way that he gets back up is he just makes this massive leap up, and then he runs to go catch up with Qui-Gon, and then bad things happen. We won't talk about those bad things. But that is a super cool Star Wars thing. If you look at Return of the Jedi, during the Sarlacc pit scene, Luke does this whole, nod thing, and he does that, and then he jumps off, and then he jumps and he flips over and he lands behind him. Like that is an instinctive leap kind of ability. You see things like that all the time in Star Wars, and they're super cool. They feel super, super cool, and Jedi get to do these super cool leaps through the air and do awesome stuff. Like that's just super awesome. In episode 2, Mace Windu does a backflip off of a balcony, lands, and then rips his robe off and brings out his lightsaber and his cool shit. Like, I mean, that's cool. In addition to that, now when you land, if you land within 5 feet of a creature, you can do an attack. The attack has advantage, which is nice. The attack does additional damage, which is nice. Because it has this advantage, you also have the chance that it will crit, which the additional damage would be doubled on a crit because it happens as part of the attack. And there's a monastic vow called Vow of Precision that increases your crit range. So all of that combined turns this into a really, really cool hyper-mobile ability. Like everything about it is super cool. Let's say you're fighting down here and your buddies are, 2 floors above you. Doesn't matter. As soon as someone gets within 5 feet of you, you go shoo. You jump up to your friend, you punch someone in the face while you're up there. Maybe turn it into a stunning strike. So as your reaction, you move 60 feet. You get an attack, you do extra damage as part of that attack, you can stunning strike and take out someone before they can really do anything. 60 feet means literally anywhere on the battlefield you can get to. There are no opportunity attacks or anything that you have to deal with, you just move. It's massively, massively cool. It feels like a 17th level of ability. It works with everything else that's built into the monk class. The Matukai Order, I would be super thrilled to play a Matukai Order monk. Like it just sounds really, really fun from the mechanics. Again, I want some more lore to kind of explain why I'm a Matukai monk, other than, apparently I can jump a lot and I can punch people and move them. So I'd like a little bit more lore to it, but overall, like, it's cool. So yeah. Final thoughts. Overall, I don't really think the Matukai Order needs any changes. Again, I was a little bit upset that the Force in Hand Strikes has nothing to do without using focus points, but with the fact that the rest of the class doesn't use focus points, I'm perfectly fine with that. Everything else kind of works well, except for absorb damage. The opportunity cost just isn't there. I think it needs a rework. Either making it more powerful, making it cost focus points, or just doing something else, because it's a little bit, maybe turning it into a reaction, because you already have a reaction you can use with Instinctive Leap. So giving a different reaction you could use in situations where you don't want to move away, that might be interesting to do. But yeah, as it is right now, there's not a whole lot of situations where I would ever use it. But other than that, like, it's cool. And I like it. I think it's a really well-designed subclass. And I think it fits. Not just, like, I could totally see this with maybe a couple changes to make it a little bit less punchy. I could totally see this being a really cool D&D 5th edition subclass for a monk. But I think this works even better just looking at the Star Wars monk. There's quite a few different monastic vows that you can use that would work really, really well with this particular monk, that could give you a lot of flavor, to the point where you could have 2 Matukai Order monks on the same team and they would still feel different enough that they wouldn't feel redundant. And I don't think you can say that about the Echani Order. You definitely can't say it about the Crimson Order. So yeah, this one, I think this is a slam dunk. This one feels like something I would want to play, that I would expect if I was playing Star Wars 5th edition. So yeah, super, super cool. Anyway, that is going to be all for me today. As always, remember, like, subscribe, turn notifications on in the comments down below. Since I covered 2 today, what are you guys' opinions on the Matukai versus the Echani? Again, the Echani is effectively the Kensei monk. Do you think the Echani kind of fits in Star Wars? Or do you think the Matukai Order kind of fills the void that the Kensei would leave in a Star Wars thing? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that's all for me, Lynn. I'll see you guys in the next time, all right? Bye-bye.